Okay, great. So let's go ahead and get started. So my name's Kimberley Bezak. Been living in NarbEARTH, let's see, this is going on 6 years. I'm originally from New Orleans, and my husband and I met there. We've moved around a good bit over the years, but we're now here in NarbEARTH. It feels like home. I love the roots and the pride that you get here in NarbEARTH. It reminds me of Louisiana, where I'm from. So happy to be here tonight. I am a board member with the NarbEARTH Civic Association. We're currently the secretary. And my other hat is the founder and president of NarbEARTH Cycling Club. So you're going to hear a little bit about biking tonight as well, touching on low impact living. Let's see, professionally, I'm an occupational therapist, and I am a mom to a 9-year-old and a 6-year-old. So lots of moving parts here, but let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to screen share. Okay. So thanks for tuning in tonight.
I don't care. My head's.
So let me know if you have any trouble, hearing anything or seeing slides now that I can't see anyone.
I just wanted to say before you get going that maybe everyone should mute while you're giving the presentation.
Sure.
Everyone could go ahead and do that.
Yeah, and if you have a question, just drop it in the chat and Patsy can monitor that. Okay, so tonight we're going to talk a little bit about low impact lifestyle. Most commonly you hear the term zero waste thrown around, and I have given a talk on zero waste in the past with the library, NarbEARTH Library. But as I have continued on my journey, I've realized that I really feel like I identify more with the terminology of low impact living, just because zero waste is really just an aspirational goal. You're never going to get there, right? You might get to 99%. I don't even know anyone that's at 99%, but I just feel like low impact feels much more approachable and achievable. Okay, so tonight we'll do some introductions. I'll touch a tiny bit on my personal journey towards low impact living. And we'll talk about getting started on the journey, what's called the 5 R's, some simple swaps, some challenges, some initial actions that you can take that most of them don't even cost anything. And then I'm going to try to leave plenty of time for questions and discussion. Okay, so we have a small enough group. I'm going to back out of here for a minute. We can do some quick introductions, but the one thing let me stop that. Okay, the one thing I'm most curious about is where you're at kind of on your journey towards sustainability. So if you can just give a quick introduction and just a quick mention. Are you at the beginning? Are you curious? Are you midway? Are you pro level? And then that'll give me a better idea of, the direction that we should move in tonight. So Patsy, you want to go first?
Yeah, so, well, I started the journey a long time ago. So I think I should be further along than I actually am. But I think I started by looking at waste and water and energy consumption, and with a group got together and kind of went from having like stacks of catalogs. This was a long time ago, maybe the 80s, and weighed my trash and I weighed my recycling and got all of that way down. And so I was happy about that. So I do have 100% renewable electricity, and I'm failing a little bit on the car. I had a hybrid car and then I went back to a gas car, but I'm committed for my next car to be electric. So I guess I'm midway on the journey. and always learning. And, you know, it's a big part of my life, but it's just hard. So I'm looking forward to learning some things tonight.
All right, great. I'm just going to move in the order that I see folks on my screen. Catherine, do you mind introducing yourself real quick?
No, not at all.
Georgette.
Georgette is taking a phone call.
Okay.
I'm Catherine Kurtz. I live up on Dudley Avenue. And I guess I would say I've been standing in the doorway for quite some time, being fairly conscious of what I consume and don't consume, but not terribly active. So I'm really curious about how to get started in a more deliberate way. Thanks.
All right, great, thanks. Carla?
Hi, I'm Carla. I'm a graduate student at St. Joe's and born and raised in NarbEARTH. And I would say I am kind of like the beginning of my journey. I always just try to do I guess little things like using reusable metal straws and stuff like that instead of plastic straws. My family composts and we like gardening. I started a community garden at St. Joe's. And I also recently just started like a little small business, like promoting sustainable fashion. So through thrifting clothing. So that's been like one of my big things recently. But yeah, I'd say the beginning.
Nice. All right, great. Thanks for joining us. Judy?
Hi, I'm Judy Wantman. I live on Elmwood Avenue in NarbEARTH, and I kind of consider myself in the middle. We compost, we have a rain barrel, we recycle and reuse everything. I don't use plastic wrap anymore, plastic bags, none of that stuff. And 2 weeks ago, I'm very proud to say, we bought an electric car. So that has been a very new experience for us. It's very exciting. We needed a new car, and I kind of researched it, and they were giving so many incentives off the price that it really wasn't worth it to buy a gasoline-powered car. So I strongly recommend that. But I'm really interested in talking about the kind of electricity that we buy, because I know I just got something, I think, stuck in my door the other day that had all these pricings from different companies, and I really don't understand that.
Okay.
I would love to
Yeah.
know about that.
Sure. Yeah, we'll touch a little bit on that, and then I can actually link you into more resources locally that can go much deeper. So thanks for joining us. Stephanie? Might just be listening.
Hey everyone, I'm Stephanie. I'm in a loud spot right now because my kids are watching TV, so I'm going to try to be quick. But I think I'm midway, but I think there's always more to learn and more to do. So I want to see what other changes I can make. We do compost. I'm vegan and my kids are vegetarian for environmental reasons. So I think that lowers our impact a lot, but I think there's so much more, that we can always learn.
Great. Okay, thanks. All right. And then Bettina.
Oops. Okay, here I am. Sorry, I was just gonna, let's see, video there.
Hi.
I'm having dinner. I thought I was just gonna listen to this. Okay.
Oh yeah, no worries. Not to put you on the spot.
I'm on the spot. No, I would say I'm probably like middle to beginner as well. I'm very interested in doing more, but I find it difficult. It's so hard to avoid plastic. And I did hear your other talk and I found it very inspirational. So I'm definitely would like to do more. And I'm excited that there are people in NarbEARTH who are like-minded and interested in the same types of things. So.
All right, great. Okay, we'll let you get back to your dinner.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Stacey, would you like to share anything?
Sure, I'm Stacey Gavin. I actually don't live in NarbEARTH. I live in Wynwood, which isn't too far away. But I'm doing a lot of the eco stuff and So I look at the NarbEARTH sites because you guys are ahead of us in a lot of ways of
All right.
you know, the area. So we do use reusable energy sources, and for our gas, we do the offsets, and we do the, you know, all the easy steps you can take. And we've recently started trying to go plastic free. So we've been using like bar lotions and shampoos and detergents and things. And then, like others said, you know, the compost and that kind of thing. And we've reduced a lot of our trash. But I'm just interested in learning other ways to do that, and also, you know, helping other people get on board, because people tend to think that it takes a lot more effort than a lot of those choices do. And
Right. Yep.
that's helpful.
Great. Okay. Thanks. Thanks for joining us. And Carlin? All right. So let's go ahead and get going with the slides real quick. All right. Back to screen sharing here.
I just, while you're setting that up, I kind of missed saying that you know, this webinar is sponsored by the Civic Association, NarbEARTH Civic Association, and a lot of what we do is focused on being green and promoting NarbEARTH Day, and so that's kind of a big part of the Civic Association. And there's several board members here. Georgette, I think, is just about to introduce herself also. She missed out the first time around. And Kimberley are all, and Jim Spear are all on the Civic Association board. Thanks.
All right. Yeah. Thanks, Patsy. So again, I just wanted to touch a little bit on my personal journey. And then we can move into, you know, the actual impact part of the presentation. So a little bit about my journey. If I had to sum it up in 3 words, I would call it chaos to clarity. So back in 2012, I had a new baby. We had moved from Philadelphia to Washington, D.C. It was a big move. Life was just feeling really chaotic with a new little person in the world, and moving and life. And one day I just was at a mom's group venting to a friend how I just felt like our life was like unraveling, you know, out of control. Like we were taking out the trash. Our apartment was a mess. We had all this stuff. And she was like, you know what? I have this friend named Bea Johnson, who just put out this book, and it sounds like something you would be really into. It's all about, you know, how she simplified her life, all about just becoming a little more minimalist in her living. So on the walk home from the mom's group, I went to the library, checked out a copy, and I could not put the book down. So Bea Johnson had this book called Zero Waste Home. And she really is seen as the mother of what we today call the zero waste movement. And she was kind of facing a similar moment in life with motherhood and the intersection of all that chaos. And she found clarity just through trying to reduce the amount of trash coming into her household. And again, I read that book and it was just my aha moment. So we just started making some tiny changes back then in our little apartment in DC, and we've moved several times now. And, you know, a little bit at the time, every time something would run out, I would be like, okay, now that I'm out of deodorant, you know, what are my options to go plastic free, that type of thing. So 7 years later, our family of 4 sends 1 trash bag to the landfill each year. And it's kind of crazy to think about that, but that's what we've evolved to now. 1 trash bag a year. So let's start.
Each year?
1 trash bag per year, yeah. So I'll talk a little bit about how we got there. So the zero waste living, you know, Bea Johnson's book really focuses on what she calls the 5 R's. And so I'm kind of structuring tonight's presentation around going through those steps. And I really think it helps with the big picture approach to where do I start, okay? So the emphasis in our society is about recycle, 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 right? And recycling is great, but really the goal of zero waste is to not have to recycle in the first place. So Bea's approach of working through these 5 stages, you know, step 1, step 2, step 3, you might get to recycle, but you might not. You might find a use for these items before you ever even get there. So let's just go through each one by one and talk about it in a little bit of detail. So refuse. Refuse could be something as simple as all the junk mail you get. That's one thing I learned from her book. I didn't even, I realized, wait, I have control over junk mail. I thought this was something out of my control and went right into the recycling bin. I started looking on the junk mail and finding an email or phone number, and I would call or email and say, please stop sending this to me. That was way back in 2013. Now there's a lot of resources where you can do like one-click websites online that say, please opt me out of the junk mailings. And it might not get rid of all the junk mail, but it does dramatically reduce the amount of credit card solicitations and that type of thing that comes to your house. And I don't have the link for the opt-out right in front of me, but I can definitely share it after the presentation. But that's one way to refuse. Another one, which Sasha, oh wait, Sasha, I'm so sorry. I didn't even, with the introductions.
No worries, go on.
So something Sasha would really appreciate, because she's talked to me about this before. When kids go to birthday parties and you get the junky little thank you for coming to my party plastic toys, refusing, right? I mean, in the beginning, it was really awkward for me to refuse items, but I realized it felt like so empowering, like just saying no, thank you. Or I would go to a professional conference. Those were the worst. Go to professional conferences for my job. And every table, they're trying to give you little grab bags of junky things and pens and notepads and all of that. I would just start very kindly refusing those things. Going to the restaurant, you know, refusing the straw, refusing the plastic wrapped utensils or different things that they would try to bring to the table. Those are just some examples of refusing. Okay, so reduce. Let's talk about reduce. So some simple swaps. Okay, so when I started, after reading Bea's book in 2013, I started thinking about what were the first steps that she really highlighted towards becoming more mindful with my approach to sustainable living, and keeping it approachable and not feeling overwhelmed, you know, as I'm parenting a little one and working and doing all the things that definitely take priority, right? So the very, very early things I started swapping, I ditched paper towels. And when I'm going to stop screen sharing in a minute, I'm going to do a little show and tell and show you some of the items. But these are just a really simple sampling of things that I ditched first. I got rid of my coffee maker broke, and I started using a French press. And I realized, wait, I can just buy the beans, grind them, no need for filters. Coffee filters went off of my shopping list. Disposable plates, utensils, you know, you're hosting birthday parties with the little ones. And I decided at some point, it ended up being cheaper for me to just buy a set of 20 plates and cups and a set of utensils and keep that in a little bin and have that available for entertaining and parties instead of buying the, you know, constant stream of disposable plates. And again, over the long run, I can't imagine how much money that saved. Feminine hygiene products, a few years back, for those of us that, you know, need to worry with the hygiene products, I switched over to a menstrual cup, for instance. you know, that upfront investment was maybe $35. Now I can't even imagine how
We lost you.
Kimberly, we've lost your sound.
She might have lost us as
the
well.
Saran. Yeah, the Saran and the parchment. I'll show you that too. So let me stop screen sharing a minute and I'll do some quick show and tell. Okay, so talking about some very first things I did. Looking at my trash was so enlightening, right? I saw like what the biggest, what was taking up the most in my trash, other than food waste, which we'll talk about in a minute. So one thing I saw were just heaps and heaps and heaps of paper towels. You know, we'd have a little spill from the baby. We'd take a whole wad of paper towels, wipe it up, throw them out. I mean, it was outrageous. So I invested in these like little cloth napkins. I invested in a set of 60 of them. And my mom actually made some for me that year for my birthday. She surprised me. But this set of 60 napkins I still have since 2013. So that's what, I don't know, 7 years ago. Very long initial investment going strong there. Another thing we ditched was cotton balls. And I upcycled some old cotton t-shirts and I used my rudimentary sewing skills and I made these little cotton pads and, you know, for facial care. Again, that we ditched paper towels and cotton balls with that. Another thing, the disposable razors. So between my husband and I, we're seeing a lot of that in, you know, piling up in our garbage. So at one point, this was actually one of my later swaps. So at one point I swapped over to this kind of a hybrid of a blade, you know, blade razor. I switched over to that. Let's see what else. Shampoo bars. I mean, I'm sure this is, you know, becoming a much more common thing now that folks are swapping to. I will say, you know, back in 2013, when I was trying to swap to some stuff in the beginning, there really wasn't a lot out there. So I just kind of bought like the one product I could find. But as we were going through disposable items, I would say, you know what, let me just see if there's something out there. So I mean, I've had these now since 2013. These are like little zipper top reusable bags, and they're still going strong all these years later. Now there's much fancier ones, the stasher bags, which most people, these are like the common ones now. But again, I just started making swaps. This is another thing I've had, again, since 2013. It's a little wrap. And we wrap peanut butter, jelly, kids' lunches, burritos, sandwich wraps, all kinds of stuff in these little wraps instead of using foil or saran. Pre-pandemic, I'll say it was much easier for me to go to Bruno Brothers and buy cheese, and they would put it in here, or I would buy deli meat. Sasha, do they still, not to put you on the spot, I haven't been to the Bruno lately.
Well, last time I did that was probably 3 months ago, and the person who was serving us did put the cheese in the wrap. But I think it probably varies.
Yeah.
Person to person.
So I even go to American Family, and Mr. Paul will put my cheese from the deli counter. He'll put it in these wraps instead of using the disposable packaging that they have there, which I just think is amazing that Mr. Paul does that. Not surprising, but yeah. Yes, Patsy.
So we have a couple of questions. So I thought maybe we'd do it as we go along a little bit.
Sure.
Because,
yeah, definitely.
So somebody asks, Where do you throw the towels? And the towels, I think you keep them and wash them, right?
Yeah, I wash them. They go into my wash. The little napkins. Yeah. So we use them. We might use them several meals. And then yeah, they go into right into our laundry. Yeah.
And where do you get the wraps? What are they made out of?
So these, again, talking about product availability, I'm sure there's much different products on the market now, but these are from 2013. They're a company from New Zealand called Wrap Eat. And this original set has lasted me so long. I'm gonna guess they are made of some type of plastic, but again, back then I realized just the initial investment in a few of these saved me so much packaging. I kind of weighed the pros and cons of it. Let's see. We talked about the bars of soap. Clothespins, hanging clothes to dry. At some point, those wooden clothespins I had just started breaking and dying, and I was able to transition to metal, which has been really great. Let's see what else I have here. This chainmail scrubber. Okay, so I used to buy those metal Brillo kind of scrubby things to scrub my pots and pans. And sooner or later they fall apart and you have to toss them. So this thing called a ringer, a chainmail scrubber, this thing will last you, it's going to be around longer than I am. I mean, it does the same thing. It scrubs the cast iron or the stainless pans and it lasts forever. Let's see, a couple other things. These are tooth tabs. So instead of toothpaste, and I've got this is a salad dressing bottle. It has all these dressing recipes on it. I noticed we were buying lots of salad dressing in plastic bottles. I invested in this and that went away. So anyway, there's lots of products out there now. Band-Aids that are compostable, lint balls for your dryer that cut down on drying time. These are made of wool. They even make floss now that's compostable. So there's lots of products out there now. Okay, let's get back to screen sharing. Oop. All right, there we go. Okay, so a little bit about the grocery shopping. Pre-pandemic, this was much easier than it is now, but I will say I still have success buying a lot of my kitchen grocery items using, low waste, I guess you'll say. So I have my little spice jars. I go to Mom's Market. They have really great spice selection, and they still let you put the spices right into your own jar. So I do that. The coffee I still get it from Mom's, although there are now some at the Greeks next door and at Pinwell Provisions. You can now buy coffee that's locally roasted in compostable bags. You can also get things like honey and balsamic vinegar and items like that, like on tap in your own container. So down in the corner here is just kind of an example of what my going to the grocery bag looks like. When I leave the house, I have this go bag that I grab, and it has the mesh produce bags, it has the bulk bags, spice jars, bulk jars. And then down there's a wax crayon that I can write what I've bought. So Tear, I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with Tear, but just a quick rundown of how that works. So when I bring my own bag or my own jar, I Down here, circled in red, that is the item's name in a number form. So I normally write that on the lid of what I am buying. So popcorn, that's something we buy a lot. I'll write the little code down. And then the T.95, that's how much the jar itself weighs with nothing in it. So when you go to the register, they weigh your item and then they reduce the weight of the jar or the bag or whatever you're buying. So to get the tare of the empty jar, I put it on the scale here, and then circled up here, it says 0.95. That's how much your empty container weighs. And you write that on the lid of the jar. When you get to the register, they know how to subtract that weight so that you're only paying for what's in the jar or in the bag. So something that I've heard, I've had people ask in the past how to avoid, some things are going to be unavoidable, obviously, especially during pandemic. I'll say, we've been buying chips and stuff like that, but snacks that are kind of package free, I make homemade Laraballs, which is so easy. It's just figs or dates and nuts and seeds and dried cranberries. I just kind of buzz them up into a meal and I mash it together and refrigerate those. They're a really good snack. We pop popcorn. We buy corn nuts in bulk. I whip up hummus. We do veggies and hummus, apples and nut or seed butter. We'll boil eggs. And DeBruno Brothers, actually, for folks who do eat meat, DeBruno Brothers has jerky that's made in-house that you can buy with your own container. Those are just a few examples. Again, traveling on the go, I just really try to plan ahead. So we have all these little baggies with the tared snacks that I've bought from the bulk bins at Mom's or Weaver's Way or Whole Foods. And again, I just try to pack it ahead of time. That way we're not falling victim to stuff that you pick up when you're traveling. You stop at the gas station or at the airport kiosks. It's so much packaging. The most packaging I feel like I ever see is when I'm traveling, going through the airport or the train station. So again, I make muffins or pack apples and try to keep it low trash. So reusing is the third R. So if you can't refuse it and you can't reduce it, then the next step that you work through is trying to either reuse it, repurpose it, or repair it. So we have a few we are so fortunate to live in this area. That is what I'll say first. We have some really good options when it comes to this R that a lot of folks in other areas just don't have access to. So the biggest thing, which I think several of you would be familiar with here, is our Buy Nothing group. So Buy Nothing NarbEARTH group. If I have something that I no longer have a use for, then I offer it on Buy Nothing. Folks scoop it up right away. Before my daughter might need a new raincoat. Instead of just going out and buying it new, I ask on Buy Nothing. And this community just is so giving. It's just a really great resource that we have here with Buy Nothing. I say yes to secondhand. So, the rule that we kind of follow in our house is when we do need to bring something, into our house that we don't currently own, we look to Buy Nothing, or we try to borrow it if it's something we only need for one use. If those options exhaust themselves, then we go to secondhand. So Twice as Nice for kids' clothes has been such a great resource for us. Even something as odd as a tent. Our old tent finally died, and we needed to get another tent. My husband and my daughter went to REI's garage sale a couple of weekends ago, and they found a used tent that someone had returned. So we were able to buy a secondhand tent and avoid buying a new one. Even the glass, you know, when we do buy things that that we can't avoid packaging, we do try to buy them in glass. The glass that we have when we're done with the bottle, we don't send it to the curbside recycling, which I'll talk about in a minute. There's an organization in Philadelphia, a nonprofit called Bottle Underground. They collect glass and they reshape it into new items, which is sold at a shop called Remark Glass in the city. And it's such an amazing program, right? Because we're following those stages of steps. We're not sending things quite to the recycling bin yet. And we're giving a really great organization an opportunity to find another life for wine bottles and beer bottles and pickle jars and all the things that they collect. So if you have an opportunity to go to the Remark Glass website and see what they're shaping a lot of our glass bottles and jars into, it's amazing. So you should check that out. Let's see, recycle. Okay, so you get to the point, you've tried to refuse it, you've tried to reduce it, you've tried to reuse it or repair it, and all those options are not available to you. What's next? Now is when you think about recycling it. So in general, we really try to avoid plastic. I mean, I know it's just, there's going to be scenarios where you can't avoid it, right? But it's important to keep in mind that only 9%, the numbers say 9% of all the plastic ever created in the world has been recycled. So 91% of that plastic is just kind of out there in our environment forever, right? Breaking down. We've all seen the articles and the research about where bits of plastic are ending up. So we do try to avoid plastic completely. But when it is, when I go to the store and there are options to either buy something in plastic, glass, or metal, I do try to choose metal when possible because it's infinitely recyclable and it's not as fragile as glass. I mean, glass is great, but the reality is when it goes into your curbside bin and it goes into the recycling truck, it gets broken up and mingled with other things, other colors of glass. And that really, the reality is it's not going to get recycled. So, oh, hold on one second. Okay, sorry about that. So the glass is all getting mingled together in the recycling truck, and then they can't be separated. Glass can only be recycled when it remains sorted by color. So the reality of what is actually happening to a lot of our glass when we put it in the curbside bin is that all those bits that are broken up are being spread over the landfill as cover. So trying to choose metal over plastic and even glass, I feel like is a more sustainable option. So this slide kind of gives a
We've lost you, Kimberley.
collaborated on and put together. And this one is specific to people that actually live in NarbEARTH Borough, but this is a very up-to-date guideline on what can go in the bin and what you should not put in the bin. The glass is on there because it is technically recyclable, but again, there's a little bit of debate as far as how much recycling can actually happen. So again, obviously sending it in the recycling bin is way better than sending it to the landfill in your trash bag. But considering sending it to a place like Bottle Underground is, you know, what I'll emphasize with that. So let's see. Over here on the right, the recycle beyond the bag. So a lot of these plastic films that come into our house that you might not be able to avoid, bread bags, the bubble wraps that a lot of door deliveries are coming in, newspaper sleeves, those can be recycled over at Giant. There is a bin, and a lot of people think that's just for grocery bags. But really, the rule of thumb is if it's clear and you can poke your thumb through it, if it's soft enough to poke your thumb through, it can be included in that drop-off at Giant, in that drop-off bin, just inside the store. So in addition to the grocery bags, you've got the produce bags. You can even put, if you have some Ziploc bags, they can go in there. The case overwrap that comes over like a case of tomato sauce that you might buy at Costco. Those are just some examples. Recycling guide. Montgomery County has a recycling manager, Veronica Harris. They do a really great job keeping a database of how you can recycle items A to Z. So if there is something in your house that is, you know, has seen the end of its life and you're looking for a way to responsibly recycle it, you can go to Montgomery County's website and it'll tell you what your options are for responsibly recycling those items. Another option locally is called Pop-Up Recycling NarbEARTH. And Jim Spear and Sasha Weaver, who are on this Zoom presentation, they offer, every few months, they offer pop-up collections of some of these hard to recycle items that you see on this recycling guidelines that say do not recycle. So if you go to their page, Pop-Up Recycling NarbEARTH, they're actually offering a pop-up collection right now for NarbEARTH Week of styrofoam, of snack packaging, medication containers. Okay, so beyond all of this, rot. So we have a few options for rotting. There's, you know, some of us do offer the do home composting. And for some that live in our community, that's either not appealing or not realistic if you're an apartment or a condo dweller. So there are some, there are a couple of businesses locally that offer curbside compost pickup services. And the two that come to mind, there's Mother Compost and there's Kitchen Harvest. It's really simple. You know, when you pay for this service, they bring you a bucket, you put all of your food scraps in it and organic materials, your, you know, hair that is in your tub drain, all that stuff. You put it in the bucket and you put it out on your curb and they send you a little reminder, and then they come by the next morning, they empty your compost, they bring it to Linvilla, they turn it, you know, back to the earth. And again, it's just an option that you can keep in mind if you don't have access to backyard composting. It's just a way to get a ton of food scraps out of your kitchen bin. Okay, so, oops, sorry about that.
Kimberley, do you want to have some questions on the items you've just been talking about, or do you want to save them all to the end?
Yeah, we can do some questions. Let me just stop screen sharing because it's kind of hard to. Okay.
Yes. So,
question.
so I know that they do that with the when you're buying produce and so on, and they'll do the tear weights, and you buy. Do they know if they do that at other grocery stores? For instance, Giant, Acme.
I'm not sure about Giant and Acme. My approach at Giant and Acme has been to just keep my items naked. Like I don't even bother putting them in a bag. And I will kind of get around it that way instead of using their baggies. Yeah, that's been my approach. When I do go to Giant, I even have some, Mom's and Trader Joe's does have, it's not ideal, but they do have those compostable produce bags. And during the pandemic, at the very beginning of the pandemic, when they weren't allowing you to bring any of your own stuff, we did get a little stash of those compostable produce bags. And I hung on to the ones that were still intact. And when I would walk up to Giant or go to Whole Foods or Acme, I was using those instead of the plastic ones that they offered. So that's just a personal share.
Okay. Somebody asks if you'll post the resources you mentioned, in particular the Bottle Underground. I guess somebody can find that just by looking at Bottle Underground. Can Google Bottle Underground Philadelphia.
Yeah, and I have a whole kind of outline of notes that I can definitely share as well. It goes into a little more detail with more reduce options, talking about the cooperative gardens and yeah, I can definitely share those notes after this.
Great. Somebody asked, what do you do with shredded paper? And some people have answered a little bit, but do you know do you have somebody, we compost some.
Yeah.
And I always try to go to one of those when I have a lot, I go to one of those shredding events where they compost. They do something with it.
Yeah. So our shredded paper does go into our home compost in the backyard. But it can't, I guess the part to emphasize is you're not supposed to put it in your curbside bin. Really, if it's smaller, if it would go through a toilet paper tube, it's kind of the rule of thumb. It's too small to go in your curbside bin, whether it's a bit of plastic or paper or whatever. To really get captured, it needs to have some significant size to it. So yeah, I do put it in home compost. You could, again, with these compost services, they take so many items. Or you could do the shred events that, Mary Jo Daly just had one. There's another one coming up in May, at the end of May.
Yeah, I think somebody said to me, anything smaller than a credit card is too small. Another way of thinking about it. And do you have any idea what happens to the plastic bags that people that they collect at the grocery stores?
Yeah, so speaking to Giant's program in particular, just because that one is still active, the one Acme used to have a program and it's been on hold during COVID, but Giant's partnered with Trex, Trex, and they're the ones that make all the composite decking and park benches. So Giant collects all of that, and they're partnered with Trex, and all of that gets processed into composite materials like decking or benches.
Gosh, that makes me so happy. I didn't realize that. That's great. Okay, that's it for questions yet. Unless anybody has any questions that they haven't put in the chat so far.
Yeah, you can add them to chat. Okay, great.
I think we're good.
Okay, good. So let's talk a little bit about challenges. So I did ask in the mainline shift community for folks to tell me what they thought the biggest challenges were. I've been on this path for a bit, and I kind of forget, what might have felt like a challenge in the beginning. So finding that balance and that simplicity. Again, this is a marathon, not a sprint, right? And it's what you make of it. Every shift counts. So for me, really, it was just one, using up what I already had on hand until it was gone or until it had reached the end of its life. And then when that moment came, then I said, okay, what are my options? Investing in something that was reusable, investing in something quality that I knew would last forever or much, much longer than a disposable. And just granting myself a little bit of grace and patience really is important in this journey, or you're going to get burned out. Getting partners or households on board. I feel like that was that was definitely in the top 3. That's why it's on here. I mean, I was really fortunate. My husband, I had him read a little bit of Bea Johnson's book, the intro, and it made an impact. It clicked for him. He's been really supportive. But in a situation where you have a partner or household that's just not interested or resisting, again, every shift counts. Just starting with what you have control over, with personal care items, switching your deodorant over, your razor, your toothbrush, your bar soap, just every little bit counts. And I've even learned with a few things that my household's been kind of resistant about in the beginning. I'm leading by example, and they've come around, with some of the items. So bar soap was one of them. I don't understand what the fascination is with liquid soap, but it took some time to get there, and now just leading by example, everyone's on board. And then the time, research, and resources is the other thing that I think people start getting frustrated with. We're fortunate that this moment has now become much more of a movement with low impact living. And now with the Mainline Shift community group, you can go on there and just ask, and there are all these other people that have already done the research for you. So I feel like now we're just getting into a much more comfortable place where you've got so much support and community with this. So action items. Let's just talk about some simple actions, right? So where to start? Looking in your trash is so enlightening. Get a sticky note or something, get a little scrap of paper, write the date on it, and stick it on your trash can. This is something Sasha Weaver inspired me to do. She asked me one time how long it had been since I'd taken my trash out. I had no idea. I put the date on it, January 1st. And then we made it we might have made it 10 months one year. And it was motivating, because I realized, oh my God, it's been a month. Oh my God, it's been 2 months. It kept us all kind of going. And when someone in my household might be feeling a little less committed to the cause, when they'd walk over to the trash can, they would see that date and they would think like, okay, wait, let me not be lazy and let me think about where this actually belongs. Does it really belong in the trash bag, or does it belong in the compost, or does it belong, but looking in the trash, just looking in your trash bag, that's going to show you where your simple swaps need to start, whether it's Kleenex or paper towels or food scraps. That's really going to, I think, set you in the right direction. Ditching the car, once a week, can you commit, instead of running down to Get Cafe to get a coffee in your reusable mug, maybe you walk or maybe you bike down there. Just ditching the car once a week, I think, would be a really simple thing to commit to. Walking to the library to get that book, that kind of thing. Switching to renewable energy. is becoming so much easier now. You can still
We can't hear you.
Yeah.
We can't hear you.
Kimberly, we lost you.
I think that she has sometimes her internet connection is not strong.
Oh,
focused.
Hey, Kimberly,
yeah.
we lost you. So can you go back to start about on switch to renewable energy again?
Oh yeah, I'm so sorry about that.
That's okay. We lost your audio altogether.
Oh, bummer. Okay, sorry about that. So with the renewable energy, it's just so simple now through Pico. You can opt to switch to renewable and your bill still comes from Pico. We made the switch a few years ago. I can put in the meeting notes the link to get more information. What I was saying is the Climate Action NARBs and NEARBs, which is the group name CAN, they're really focusing on that as part of NarbEARTH, or as part of Earth Week, Earth Month, getting more folks to switch to renewables. So they have so much information right now with their campaign to encourage more households to switch. So I'll put that in the meeting notes. And the other thing is just sharing your shifts. When you have, your little mini victory, maybe you brought your growler down to the Greeks next door and got, beer on tap, or maybe you composted your Brussels sprouts scraps. Sharing that in our little community online, it really does help inspire other people, or it gives them an idea that they hadn't thought of before, of just a simple switch in your daily life. So those are just some ways to start moving forward. I talked a little bit about Shift. So myself and Sasha Weaver and Alicia Eagle co-founded a business, Shift Sustainable Goods and Services, and we were well on our way to opening a shop in NarbEARTH when the pandemic hit. So unfortunately, that's still on an extended hold. But one thing that has gone live despite the pandemic is the Shift, what we call the Shift Resource Guide. So really anything and everything that you might want to know about starting your journey towards low impact living, you can find on the Shift website, on the Shift Guide site, and I'll have the link in the notes. Whether it's looking for a way to reuse, repair, recycle, upcycle, it really is kind of your one-stop spot to get beyond that barrier that folks talked about, the challenge of research and time. We really tried to pull together a resource that takes that barrier out of the picture and just makes it a little bit more approachable. Okay, so here's a really, really great quote that I think more people need to hear, especially corporations, right? But as far as just, if we can start small, then the big companies will start listening, right? If it can't be reduced, reused, repaired, rebuilt, refurbished, refinished, resold, recycled, or composted, then it needs to be restricted, redesigned, or removed from production, right? It all starts with the R's. And until we can get change happening at the top, then we'll just try to keep doing what we can in our households. So I talked a little bit about the Mainline Shift community on Facebook. It's just a great place to go if you're feeling stuck, you have questions, you're wondering, what do I do with these old tennis shoes instead of sending them to the landfill? There's so much information there to help keep you going on your journey. And on Instagram, it's NarbEARTH Journey to Zero Waste. And again, talking about every shift counts. I love this quote by Anne-Marie Bonneau. She is known as the Zero Waste Chef. She says, "We do not need a handful of people doing zero waste perfectly. We need millions of people doing it imperfectly." So just being patient with yourself, one step at a time. Like, again, every shift counts. And if we can just get millions of people doing that one thing that works for them, that feels right and fits with their life, that's going to make such a difference. Okay, so.
Wow, Kimberly, thank you. That was fantastic. There's a couple of questions still from the chat, and maybe people have other questions that they can.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, so Catherine asked, what happens to all the stuff in our yellow bins that we put out?
Oh, in the curbside bin.
The curbside bins.
That's, it's a very long answer to the question. I mean, that's why if you're kind of following Bea Johnson's 5 R's philosophy, she has recycle so far down on the list because she said that really should be your last resort, because the recycling reality is just nowhere where it needs to be. No fault to them. I mean, think about the amount of packaging that is produced in our country today. It's mind-blowing. It's overwhelming. 9% of plastic is getting recycled, right? So at a minimum, if we could just try to ditch as much plastic as possible, that would make a huge difference. Instead of buying the eggs in the plastic container, buy the cardboard container and bring it to the farmer at the farmer's market. That's what I do. The farmers love taking those egg cartons back and reusing them. Yeah, the metal is the most reliable item being recycled right now. So I would say in a scenario when you just cannot avoid packaging, you can't buy something naked. If it's a metal is an option, buy that, because metal is infinitely recyclable. There's a market for it. There's actually some money there on the recycling company's end. So yeah, metal is really your best bet. Plastic, please just try to avoid it for so many reasons.
And paper, do you know anything about what happens to the paper?
Yeah, so paper, paper's not perfect either, right? It has to stay dry. So I try to, again, with the egg cartons and stuff like that, I try to offer it up or reuse it until it's falling apart and then compost it. Paper is a tricky one too. I go out on recycling day sometimes after the rainstorm, and there's just like heaps and heaps of soggy cardboard, and that's just going to go right to the landfill, because once it's wet, they're not going to be able to recycle it.
Okay. Stacy asked a great question. What do you do with receipts? That's the biggest part of our trash. They're often on carbon paper that can't be recycled curbside and are a mile long for no good reason. That's so annoying. And it's like, either you take it or they throw it away. So
yeah. I was so disappointed.
Can you say no? Can you refuse it?
Well, okay, so that is right. That's the benefit of buying at the farmers markets and buying local. A lot of our local shops, you can kind of ditch the receipt, which has been really great. I was so excited a couple of years ago because you'd go to Moms or different more sustainable businesses like that, and they would email it to you or let you refuse it. Receipts are hard. They cannot go in the curbside recycling. because they're coated with a chemical kind of plastic coating. So they should not go in your recycling bin. They should not go in compost because you're tainting the compost with the chemicals that the paper is treated with. So the reality is I don't put them in my trash bag. I have, down in my basement, I have a shelf with hard to recycle items that I can't put I worked my way through the 5 R's and I don't really have a place for, and I don't want to put them in trash because they're like TerraCycle, which is kind of a company that's building itself around recycling everything that you can't recycle. They do have an option that accepts the receipts. At some point, I think I'll probably send them along to TerraCycle. But yeah, that's a especially tricky one. Right now with pandemic, I've been getting a lot of receipts. Yeah, I have.
Okay. I didn't even know they couldn't go in the recycling, so I've learned that tonight.
Just couldn't fix it. No receipts and recycling.
Yeah. So somebody, Judy's mentioning that tiffin, so takeout foods full of, problems as far as recycling and reusing and so on. But tiffin's somewhere that's actually using reusable containers that you can bring back.
Yeah.
So that sounds like a great option.
Yeah, so that's a brand new thing that they're rolling out. It was really exciting in our area to see a business pushing out a returnable container program. So Tiffin's containers are plastic, but again, I'm thinking about the amount of takeout packaging that we've seen just increase exponentially during the pandemic. It's just, our families just tried to avoid takeout, but I know that's not an option for a lot of people. So yeah, I know Tiffin does currently have that. Pre-pandemic, Faux Ever Yours right in town was making such great progress with allowing you to BYO, to bring your own containers for takeout. And then the other thing I wanted to mention was Pinwheel Provisions. Now, it's not takeout per se, it's flash frozen, get your food on your table really quickly. But it's something that we've kind of migrated to, especially during a pandemic, to avoid takeout, but we don't have time to really, cook a whole meal. So Pinwheel's allowing you to bring your own containers and they fill it for you. It's full service. But that's been a really great way that our family's been able to reduce or avoid, the takeout packaging dilemma that we're currently dealing with.
Okay, and let's see. Oops, can't see the chat here. Judy, I'm not sure what your last question is about weighing the container for the tear.
Oh, tear.
How do you weigh a container that you're going to take to like the Head Nut or something to get coffee in, coffee beans, so that they take off that amount?
Okay. So you're mentioning the Head Nut specifically. I will say the Head Nut has been it has so much potential. It has been a very hard place to shop sustainably, which is so sad. Several of us have tried to go there and bring, our little bulk baggies that are already teared, that type of thing. And it's been very hit or miss. So just because you mentioned Head Nut, I'll say I have not had success consistently buying things with my own containers there. And it's just become so unenjoyable that I've just stopped going there because, your money is your vote. So I haven't been going to Head Nut anymore. But to answer your question with tear, So I said our family, we go through a lot of popcorn, right? Popcorn's a big one in our house. So, talking about plastic, right? That I couldn't avoid. This has become our popcorn container, this plastic container. So when I go to Mom's or Weaver's Way or Whole Foods or wherever I'm buying it, I take the empty container, I go over to the scale in the bulk section, or customer service will help you with this too. Either you or they will put your empty container on the scale, and under weight, it'll say a number, like this container was 0.26 is what it weighed. So T 0.26 is the tare of the empty container. Then this number at the bottom is the code for the popcorn. So you write that on there. Then when you fill up your container and you go to the register, they weigh the whole container, and they get a total weight, and then they subtract that 0.26 from the total weight, and that gives you just what's in the container. You're just paying for that. And Pinwheel Provisions does it as well.
Will they do that in Giant?
No. Giant has not. I have not had luck at Giant, but again, like Mom's Market, they actually have signs encouraging it, which I love. Weaver's Way, Whole Foods, which I don't really go to Whole Foods, because it's Amazon. I've really tried to get that out of my life. But yeah, places like that have been really great about introducing BYO container. And downtown at Pinwheel, they've been so good about it. So yeah, those are your options for really right now for tear, for bringing your own container.
Any other questions, anybody? Do you want to give a plug for vegetarianism, or is that like a whole different question?
Yeah, I'm happy to do any follow-up talks that really dive into the details. After the library talk a couple of years ago, there were some requests for like another kind of comprehensive talk, and there's just so many aspects that you could touch on, right? Mm-hmm. But yeah, we could definitely dive into other areas. I mean, there's a lot of value, right? So the piece talking about vegan, vegetarian lifestyle, Peace Advocacy Network, which is PAN, is a local organization, a nonprofit that does vegan pledges. They are a really great resource for anyone that's looking to kind of ditch meat or dairy or different, choosing more sustainable food. I will say I was vegan for a while, and for medical reasons, I had to introduce animal products back into my life. I'm just trying to be really mindful about, going to the farmer's market and supporting local agriculture, responsibly raised animal products. So it's not for everyone. And, again, it's just what feels right on your journey is going to be different for everyone. The great thing about the mainline shift community, it's like a no shame zone. Every shift counts, right? So every little bit you can do is making an impact. So don't feel like you have to do it all. It's just bit by bit, you'll get there.
Looks like Georgette has a question.
Yeah, and I just want to ask a couple of things. One is, Kimberly, you referred to notes or outline or something from this talk. Is that something that all of us who are here will receive?
Yeah, I can definitely, I'm trying to think the best way to get it out to you. I mean, if you, I will post it to the Mainline Shift community page on Facebook. And in addition to that, if I don't have a way to get it to you through email, you can email me. either you can send it to Kimberley at mainlineshift.com. That would probably be a really easy way to do it. And I can send you the meeting notes with all the links to all the resources.
And then given that this was all recorded, where can people go to see it who didn't get to be here tonight?
So this, again, I've given this talk tonight, hosted by NarbEARTH Civic Association for NarbEARTH Week. And it's been recorded. It's going to be archived on their YouTube channel, the NarbEARTH Civic Association YouTube channel. So that would be the best place to find it if you want to tune in later to catch the talk. Yep. And there's, in addition, there's on Thursday night, there's a talk I know by Riverbend about getting yourself and your families off the screens and into nature. Okay. So I'm definitely going to be tuning into that talk on Thursday, and it's going to be a similar format as tonight. Yes,
Catherine.
One final question about those yellow curbside bins. Given that people put all sorts of things in there, what actually happens to them? They all get dumped in the same truck. Newspapers, cardboard, everything that people put out. What happens? Does anything good happen to any of them?
Well, it's a team approach. So the reality of commingled recycling is another huge issue. The fact that commingling really complicates matters on the odds that things are going to actually get recycled. But in addition to that, like I'm talking about, it's a team effort, right? You have to count on all of your neighbors recycling right and not wish cycling. So you might be doing it perfectly and putting what belongs in the bin and keeping what doesn't belong there out. But if your neighbor and their neighbor and all the other people on your street are either wish cycling, like, oh, I hope and pray this gets recycled, so I'm going to put it in there. And, or you just don't know, they don't know any better and they're putting things in the bin that don't belong. If the load of recycling is tainted, it goes to landfill. And that's the reality of it. So because a lot of people in the community don't do that great of a job recycling, and we're commingling, you have folks that are bagging their recyclables in plastic bags, which is a huge no. It gums up the machines. And you get to a situation where when the truck arrives at the facility, they do like a inspection more or less of what the load is. And if it's the certain, I can't remember the actual percentage, if they determine that it's tainted, it goes to landfill.
Yeah, I think Jim did some work on this, and Sasha probably also, but it seems to me that, if in doubt, don't put it in.
When in doubt, throw it out. I mean,
when in doubt, put it in the trash, because if it's not supposed to be in the recycling bin, as Kimberley said, it's going to make the whole load go to landfill, which is a horrible thought. Right.
I mean, honestly, I walk and bike around NarbEARTH every day, and on recycling day, it's really hard. It's really hard to see because I pass, 8 out of 10 recycling bins that I pass, it's just tainted. Like you just glance at it and which I know is a really big reason why the NarbEARTH EAC and the NarbEARTH Civic Association partnered together to make that flyer. And the borough is currently working on mailing a copy of that flyer to every single household in the borough to try to improve recycling, making sure the recycling isn't getting tainted, to increase the odds of recycling actually happening. Yep.
Okay, let's see. Any other questions from anybody? I agree with Katie, who says, I wish the borough hadn't switched to commingled. Right. Although I think other boroughs, like Lower Merion, for instance, I think they found that all of theirs was going into the trash anyway. It's a real big problem.
Yeah, I mean, the recycling reality versus what we imagine it to be are two very different things. There's a couple of documentaries that I've watched, in recent, even during the pandemic, I watched something called Broken that talks all about the recycling system in the USA. And once you kind of like pull the blinders off and you actually realize that recycling is in a really bad place in our country, I feel like it just kind of solidifies the effort to make sure you're following those steps: refuse, reduce, reuse, then recycle, then making sure recycling is the last resort.
Okay, let's see. Yes. No more questions in the chat, really, but any more questions from anybody?
I just want to say a quick comment, heading back to the head nut conversation. I've been there before myself and unsuccessfully using my bags and containers. But what I would encourage anyone to do, really, if you really like to shop there, I would go there with my containers and I would try to make it happen, or I would at least, make an attempt, saying, do you mind if I use this? And just, even if they refuse, but at least you're putting that, it's a request from a customer. And really, the more of us who do it, the more likely the business to change their practices.
Yeah, true. I mean, Sasha and I kind of co-signed an email a couple of years ago and sent it to the head nut. And we were so excited because we thought we had made progress, and we thought we'd finally reached a moment where they're like, yes, make sure when you go in there, say, you talk to this owner and it's okay. And we headed there, we biked there one day with our containers. We were so excited. We get to the counter. Nope, they would not let us use them. So to Sasha's point, even just sending them emails, and like when you have your favorite places, just keep asking. The more people ask, sooner or later, I mean, I would hope they would listen, right? It would be foolish to not listen to your customers' requests. But yeah, I had reached a moment where I was feeling very frustrated and realizing, like, I'm giving them my money and my money is my vote. So I need to, my internet, sorry. I'm giving them my money and my money is my vote. So I just reached a point where I just decided I needed to take a break from there. So, but yeah, keep asking. Definitely. Okay. Anyone else? All right. Well, let's see. We have
Yeah. Well, so thanks everybody for coming. You're going to, we're wrapping up, right, Kimberly?
Yeah. I saw another chat come in.
Thanks so much. Great job, Kimberly.
This was wonderful. Thank you.
Great.
Hope to see anybody who's interested on Thursday night for the Riverbend presentation. Keep looking at the Facebook page, because every day we're spotlighting different environmental organizations that have in the past been exhibitors at NarbEARTH Day. Since we can't have NarbEARTH Day, we're doing our best to have something going on. And the big pop-up recycling next Saturday at the outside the library, the park by the library.
They're accepting fabric that's unusable. They're accepting styrofoam that kind of pops and crumbles, the hard styrofoam. Not meat containers, not egg cartons, not packing peanuts. It has to be that really hard styrofoam. They're accepting.
Yeah, I
think we lost you there. We lost your audio.
And a plant swap, our annual plant swap from 11 to 1 with music, live music.
Yeah, there's a whole list on the NarbEARTH pop-up recycling as well as a NarbEARTH Week event of what is being collected. You can bring it down to the field by the gazebo on Saturday from 11 to 1 during the
11
plant.
to 1. Yep, that's it.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks,
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, everyone. See you soon.
Good job.
Good job.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Kimberly. It was fabulous.
Nice,
Oh,
very nice.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.